Good evening. The biggest story of last year really started gaining momentum in August. That's when hundreds of people trekked to the site of the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline in Morton County to protest. But at least one man from Cass County also headed there, not to protest, but to keep the peace. KVRR anchor TJ Nelson joins us with our lead story. TJ?
Thanks, Allison. We are not here to pick sides. We are here to present the facts of a story and let you make up your own mind. For the past 5 months, we've brought you the tales of the mostly peaceful but at times very violent protests against a commercial venture to move North Dakota oil to Illinois. Cass County Sheriff Paul Laney was called into action and reluctantly became the face of the people enforcing the laws of the land. I talked with Sheriff Laney to get his side about his 4 months on the front lines.
The only thing we're armed with is our prayer.
We never meant ever to disrespect or disrupt their right to protest peacefully and prayer peacefully. We take an oath to defend that as much as we take an oath to stop the violent end of it.
It all began early last August. Sheriff Paul Laney was watching the Summer Olympics at home when Morton County Sheriff Kyle Kirkmeyer called for help.
We answered the call and went out, and what I thought was going to be, I told my guys initially I would imagine we'll be there a week or two max. I don't think any of us ever in our wildest dreams would have imagined it grew to 8,000 people and the violence that we saw.
While Sheriff Kirkmeyer led the law enforcement effort,
the two people did attach themselves to bulldozers.
Sheriff Laney's role quickly grew into a sort of face of the law enforcement effort.
We're not moving on that camp.
It was in large part due to his nearly 28 years in law enforcement and his time as commander of the Red River Valley SWAT team. He was front and center at briefings. He was on the front line. But on the night of the largest skirmish, Sheriff Laney wasn't there. He was on a short break to spend time with family for Thanksgiving.
I was just about there when I got the call that the violent element of the protesters were trying to attack the bridge.
It was November 20th, 2016, when protesters decided they were going to confront officers.
That night, they came for us. They wanted the bridge back, and they wanted to get through us, and they wanted to get back up to try to get in the path of the pipeline. And what started it was when they backed a semi up, and they started hooking it to the barricades that we'd put in place and started yanking them away. That started it, and then they started coming towards. They started lighting fires. They started using the fire hoses to start putting out the fires. Well, then they started trying to come through that, and that's where it just kind of went from there.
It was the night 21-year-old Sophia Wolanski, a protester from New York, claims her left arm was nearly blown off after officers threw a grenade at her. It's a claim that authorities, including Laney, strongly dispute.
And I think you're going to find through the investigation that wasn't the case. And we'll let the ATF and the FBI tell you what happened that night when they conclude their investigation. Does anybody find it ironic? Granted, we all have the right to remain silent and not testify, but is there a reason if he wanted to go tell a story, why does he not want to talk to the grand jury?
Protesters also claim that law enforcement sprayed them with water cannons in the sub-freezing weather. It ignited national media coverage and claims of excessive force and abuse.
People will say, well, you shouldn't have sprayed them with water. Well, we weren't spraying them with water to start with. I talked to the commanders that were out there. They were trying to put out the fires, and they kept trying to come through. It's a very simple way not to get wet. Stay out of the water. Tell him he can put his hands down.
Laney was involved in many confrontations on the Backwater Bridge and on Turtle Hill, including the day 300 to 400 protesters came across the water.
Obviously we're on TV. I won't use the expletives they used, but let's just say, are you ready to, blank and die today? We're coming for you. I hope you're ready to die today. Today's your day. And you got, dozens yelling that stuff at you.
Laney said many of the protesters put on ballistics vests, helmets, and gas masks, grabbing shields and clubs.
We didn't just automatically, when we saw that, open up with gas. We didn't start launching sponge rounds. We didn't start using less lethal immediately. A lot of times, even when they would do that, we would wait till the last second to engage, hoping either they were posturing or hoping they were bluffing, because nobody wins in a confrontation.
So with all you've seen, are you surprised there hasn't been any deaths?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Weapon down!
And then there have been the threats made against law enforcement officers and their families, including death threats.
Myself, my family, they tweeted out a picture of, they tweeted out my home address here in the metro area with a picture of a bullet. And Pretty much only one way to take that.
He also battled what he calls a social media machine.
This guy's a criminal. If you don't know what's been happening up there, the cops are the ones who are criminals.
He says it was hard to compete with the lies. He even ran into it in his off hours. While having dinner with a fellow law enforcement leader, they were confronted by two self-proclaimed water defenders. The 5-minute confrontation was recorded, but only a few seconds were put on social media, and it went viral in no time.
Chief Ziegler and Sheriff Laney, you got about 2 seconds to go. Okay, guys? Let us eat our dinner in peace. Have a good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys are exactly... No, we're not. We are home.
And now I'm having to defend why we escorted 2 people out of a restaurant who were causing a disturbance. And if anybody took 2 seconds to look, we were sitting at our table, trying to initially have a peaceful conversation, but it just escalated to the point where the owner wanted them out, everybody in the restaurant, it was causing a huge disturbance.
There were also concerns back at home. Then Cass County Commissioner Ken Pollock questioned the time Laney spent away from the county and the cost.
I think his question was more along the lines of how long is this going to be considered an emergency, and how long do you think we're going to need to be out there, and how long do you need to be out there? Nobody knew. We don't have a crystal ball. And I think he understood that, but I just think he wanted to ask the questions to let people know, hey, we are thinking about this. We are talking about this.
Protesters got a major victory in early December thanks to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' decision to deny an easement for the pipeline under Lake Oahe. At the same time, Laney was hit with accusations of bullying and verbally abusing a former employee.
I'd like to suggest to the Cass County Commission that you consider more vigilance on monitoring the Sheriff's Office.
Gail Wishman retired as a sergeant from the Cass County Sheriff's Office in early November. In December, the 34-year law enforcement veteran asked the county commission to investigate the sheriff, claiming Laney threatened her after she resigned.
I think the answer to that is what happened the next day. Nothing. Yes, I had a very disgruntled employee that took some shots and stated her case. I guess anytime you're in a leadership position, if everybody loves you, you're probably not doing your job.
Wishman also called it a hostile work environment for women, but Laney disputes that.
One of my biggest things that I'm proud of is the number of women that are in leadership positions in this organization.
He says 42% of his command staff is female. 40% of patrol deputies are female. The national average is 12%.
It's a privilege to wear this badge, not an entitlement.
Laney returned home from the protests full-time in early December, but his service in Morton County may not be over.
You feel you're going to be called back out
We're
to serve more?
on standby.
Yeah.
I won't give out numbers for tactical reasons or what, but I can tell you there's a significant number of us on standby.
Sheriff Laney and other officers have go bags packed, and he says they are ready to leave at a moment's notice. He says protesters' voices have been heard. The dispute over the treaties needs to be solved by the federal government, and the courts will make the final decision. He also says he saw a disturbing post recently that sums up the actions by many of the more militant and violent protesters.
F Standing Rock, F the water, I'm here to fight the police. Pretty much says what we're going to deal with. My hope is they stay home, their voice has been heard, I'll leave North Dakota and go home.
Now, a few hundred protesters do remain. The Army Corps wants to clear the area by February 22nd, but the tribe is not calling on law enforcement to forcibly remove them. The latest round of arrests made just last week on private property included Chase Iron Eyes, the Democratic candidate for U.S. Representative from North Dakota in the November election. He was charged with inciting a riot. In a Facebook post, Iron Eyes says President Trump is the one inciting riots. He also says he will fight on.
Now, TJ, is it true that the majority of the arrests made so far have been from people that are not from here? They're actually from out of state.
It is true. Of the more than 700 arrests made since August, more than 90% are people from out of North Dakota. So as for what happens next, we will have to wait and see, and we'll keep covering the story.
All right. Thank you so much,
You
TJ.
bet.